For every soldier, every infantryman, there's 10 support personnel behind them. You know, whether it be a cook or a barber, you know, a radio operator, a helicopter pilot, or whatever. There's people supporting them, and that was probably the bulk of people over there. I knew about the war, and you know, you hear about people protesting it, and I always thought it's my obligation. My parents, my dad went into, you know, Second World War. My grandfather, my uncle was in Korea. You know, when we came back, you know, the atmosphere was, you know, we were baby killers and drug addicts and things like that. And it made it even worse. Yeah, even now, you know, you hear about the heroes, the guys who were in battle, and they are the heroes. Not taking anything away from that, but it made it kind of extra hard for us guys who are not heroes. We just had normal everyday jobs, and you know, if somebody like kids want to, you know, teacher gives them an assignment, go interview a veteran, you know, and my grandkids or friends in the neighborhood would say, oh, you know, Mr. Eirvin, can we interview you? And you know, I didn't have the big compelling stories to tell them, you know. It wasn't until only a few years ago I would wear a hat like this. Things were way different 50 years ago than they are now. You know, as an 18-year-old guy, you know, I hate to say this, but I didn't have a whole lot of interest in politics or that type of stuff. My main interests were fast cars, good-looking girls, and a beer or two, you know. The draft was hot and heavy, and I knew I was going to get drafted. Everybody knew that unless you had some sort of out. My mom made me breakfast. My dad took me downtown and really just pulled over on the side and said, good luck, son. I mean, you know, he wasn't a bad guy, but that's just the way things were. You know, when you're in basic, your drill sergeant is the meanest guy. He calls you every name there is, and he's rough on you. The day we graduated, he was the nicest guy ever. He could sit and talk with you and joke with you, and it was like night and day. So it was really, you know, a game they played. But anyhow, he was talking to me. He says, you know, you're going to radio school, but that's the guys who get out in the jungle and they're right next to the lieutenant, and the antenna is swaying, and they see that and they shoot. He said, you really don't want that job. I said, well, you know, I have no choice, really. If you send and receive Morse code at a certain speed, then you can go to radio teletype school, which you're sitting in a bunker then, over there. And I couldn't get it. I just could not get that. And one night I remember I was going to go, you know, do my final test, because they told me this is your final test. You fail this test and you're not in. So I remember saying a prayer, and I said, you know, I need help here. And I aced that test. The sergeant, he said, where you been all this time? You know, you're wasting our time. I said, I don't know what happened. And that's my divine intervention story, is that I think it was the first day I just got in a bunk, kind of moved my stuff in, and was laying on the bunk because I really had no job. I had to wait for my orders. And all of a sudden I hear this boom, 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 boom. You know, I thought, what is that? And I even asked the guy, everybody's running. I said, what's that? He says, you're in a war zone, buddy. You know, he said, we're getting hit. I said, oh. So I worked the night shift. I had to, every hour or so, I'd have to call each guard tower to make sure that they're awake, nothing going on. The base I was on, we did small aircraft repair. You know, helicopters and fixed wing airplanes, small ones. And so you had the different shops that had maybe a phone in it. So when somebody would call and say, I need to talk to the AVAL shop, you know, I'd plug them into the AVAL shop, and they could talk. One evening we got hit pretty heavy, and I had only shown up to work in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, you know, and I wasn't dressed properly, and I had to call. We had a phone in our hooch, which was the place we slept. They called it a hooch. I had to call the guys there and say, go in my locker and bring me a uniform. You know, I got to get dressed before the colonel gets here. So they ran over. I'm getting dressed almost as he's walking in. And then we I forget how much it cost us, but it was only like $5 a month or a week or something. We'd all put money in, and then one of the Vietnamese ladies from the town outside would come and clean, and polish our shoes and kind of straighten out and clean. And I got in trouble for that, but I never smoked, and we had allowances for beer and cigarettes, and so I'd always buy the cigarettes and I'd give them to her, and she would smuggle them out on the black market, and sell them, so she had money. And so I didn't speak Vietnamese, she didn't speak English, but we communicated. Sometimes we'd go to I'd make a midnight run to the mess hall, and get a thing of bologna, and we'd cut it up in the morning and give it to them and to eat. And they would bring, sometimes they had their cabbage, their kimchi and things like that, and then they'd put the bologna in it and they'd mix it up and they'd give us some, and they would eat it. So he told me, go in the water, I'll watch your stuff. I thought, okay, And he said, no, I watch. He said, don't trust these guys, you trust me, And so, I went in the water, but I kept my eye on him, and he just sat there. And so I came back, he said, oh, here's your stuff. And I said, well, thank you. I nicknamed him Barry, just because I couldn't understand his name, but I always just called him Barry. And I would see him every day when I went down to the beach. He'd always come and say, I'll watch your stuff. And so I would buy him a Coke. When I could get Coke, because you couldn't get that all the time, I'd buy one for me, and the first time I bought one for him. And he says, I take this home to Mama San, because she's going to sell it on the black market. I said, no, it's for you. No, goes to Mama San. I can't drink it, So then the next day, when I saw him, I bought 3. One for me, one for him, one for his mama. And he said, both of them, take these home to Mama San. You get toughened up in the military. And you have a different outlook. I think I was a gentler person before I went in, and I came out a little rougher around the edges, where I wouldn't let somebody take advantage of me. As a young kid, before the Army, I used to smile a lot, used to be happy, and I don't know, maybe that affected it. I don't. Like I said, you meet a lot of rough people there that you have to stand up for yourself. You have to be tough. You toughen yourself up. I think now that I'm getting older, I'm mellowing again, but I think I was, in some respects, hard on my kids. I expected discipline. I mean, I didn't beat my kids or anything like that, but I expected them to buck up, be a man. And because that was expected out of me, you get there and you had to do that. I remember being on the plane, and at that time I was sitting in an aisle seat, and the plane had started to move and the cockpit doors were open, and started to get speed up the runway, and I saw the pilot and co-pilot just looking at each other and talking, and I said to myself, pay attention, I don't want this to be my last. Not now, And then it was quiet on the plane. Everybody was quiet. And as soon as the wheels left the ground, everybody cheered. We're gone. We're out of here. When I'm in an airport and I see these soldiers in there, I always, if I can, if they're not doing something or if they look receptive, I always, welcome home. Where you going, soldier? What are you going to be doing? Because we didn't get that.